We're still after the basic question is, how is there darkness inside of the Or Ein Sof? In other words, darkness is really light, a light which is intended to shine for the world. How do we find that it's already there before the Tzimtzum? When seemingly it's the Tzimtzum itself which creates that light. And yet we said that, no, if there's a Havdalah, a separation, that means you're separating two things that already exist. You separate the light from the darkness, it means the darkness was already there inside the Or Ein Sof. And that's like troubling the Rebbe here, so to speak. So he says like this, when it comes to the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, it's not even a source for the worlds, meaning to say that it is so high that worlds would never come from there directly. It has nothing to do with it. It's in a state of Havdalah and separation from anything having to do with the worlds. Nevertheless, it has some connection to the worlds. How do you know? Because it nonetheless went up in his mind to in his will to emanate and to create the world in that place. So inside the Or Ein Sof, there's a decision for worlds at some level. And not only that, he measured himself within this place of all that would potentially be. Since there is a rising of the will for the worlds, even though it's in a state of total separation and cannot be called a source because it's so high, to the point that as we said yesterday, that even the Ratzon, I want to add a few things about this. He said that to the point that even the Ratzon Klali, right, which is a general will, which is called the Tihara Tata, which we said refers to Adam Kadmon, it's considered brand new and a Chiddush and some novel thing that came out compared to what was there before. Right, so it just shows, and let's look at this. What is Tihara Tata? Ha'ak is still a will for the world that's way, way before anything actually gets delineated. Right? In other words, we call it, I was checking back at the previous Maimorim when you delved into this topic more deeply. The idea of there's a certain will called a Ratzon Klali. And if you're going to be a Klal, it means you automatically have parts. Right? Anything you're going to be a Klal has pratim. It doesn't mean that the pratim are delineated. Delineated means separated and individualized. Right? You could have a Klal, I want to build a house. Yeah, I want to build a house. And the truth is as soon as I say I want to build a house, somewhere hidden inside of there, I do have all the details of the house down to the faucets on the sink. It's just that none of that has to be clear or bepoel, as you said. But it's there. If you're going to call it a klal, then it is there. So he said in the previous Maimon, he said the first klal of the worlds is ak, which means before ak, you can't even call it a klal. You can't even call it the thing where the pratim come from. So what we're saying now is that Tihara Tata, the lower purity, which is Adam Kadmon, which is the first klal of the worlds, it's considered a totally new and distinct thing from what came before it. And he's trying to emphasize just how much Bahavdallah and separation the light before that is. And Makom Makom, nevertheless, Yesh Kan Aliyas Haratzon. This is what we said yesterday. There's still something called, it went up in his will to create the world, even before it could be called a klal. It's not even called a klal. Yeah, we're talking about before the Tzimtzum, it went up in his will. In the original Or Ein Sof, it arose in his will to create the worlds. There's some shaykhs to olamos there, even though it's beyond the klal of the worlds. And there's clearly no pratim in that place of anything having to do with olamos, because they can't even be called a klal, a general. And yet we do find this language, it went up in his will even there. And not only went up his will, he measured himself. So there's something strange going on there. And what we said was that this ratzon is called an aroused will. And we spoke about it yesterday in short, and we're going to speak in short again today, although it's like several pages and probably several classes that we devoted to this maybe a month ago. But he said that there's 3 levels of will. There's Ratzon HaMuchlat. There's this essential will that's inside of the being, whether it's God or us, I guess, which is really united with our essence. And it doesn't even come out, doesn't even show itself. Right? It's not an aroused will. Once something is behis odorus, it's aroused, it means it has some, expression somehow.
Pnimiyut haratzon?
What's that?
Is that Pnimiyut haratzon?
Pnimiyus haratzon? All of this, I think, could be called Pnimiyus haratzon. Depends, that's a little bit relative. Pnimiyus, it always depends where you are, right? But what we're talking about right now, I guess you would say the ratzon that we're talking about right now, this ratzon hamuchlat, is even before the or ein sof. You would say maybe it's the ratzon of the etzem ha'or. The etzem ha'or is where the light is still not yet shining, and it's inside of Hashem's essence and united with His essence. There's also some kind of a ratzon there, but it's completely divorced from anything having to do with even being aroused to something. Then you have the state of hisorus haratzon, the will. What's a good word for hisorus? I guess aroused, but it's not exactly what I'm going for there. It sort of awakens. Yeah, yes, that's better. It awakens. It gets awakened. It comes up.
What's in a way?
Hisorus, an awakening. It's better.
And how would you explain it? What's that like in the house analogy? Let's say.
This is well, first of all, this comes in 2 parts. And we're going to see in a second, you'd be aroused to yourself or aroused for the other, okay? And in the house analogy, this is in the realm of the or ein sof before the tzimtzum. So we said this arousal to yourself, the first level of arousal, awakened ratzon, is still not in the realm of being a klal to the world, right? Because it's before the tzimtzum. So your will is aroused. That's like it's aroused in the or ein sof.
So in a person he knows, like deep down, very deep down, that you want a house. Like every human being has that will, and then it's like you actually, I really do want it now.
Right, but
you still didn't think about the faucet set or anything else. You don't even know the color of the house.
You don't even know the color of the house. It's just like it's almost like you've been made aware to yourself to some faint degree that you actually even have that will. Because a person wants to have a house even before they know it.
Right.
So that's like what means a ratzon hamuchlat. It's just like muchlat just means it's like signed, sealed, and delivered. You can't get rid of it. It's like one with you, and it's one with you just being a person. You have a ratzon for a house from the day you're born, basically, right? And the idea is you don't even know about it. It's not even awakened inside of you. It's just part of you. That's what it means. Like the essence of the light is not a thing that shines. It's just in Hashem. There's an ability to shine. Then it comes out a little bit, and this is called an awakening of the will. But this is still or ein sof before the tzimtzum. And so we're saying that this is sort of our discussion today, is that how is it there's anything shaykhs to a will for anything when you're still before the or ein sof and before the tzimtzum, and even after the tzimtzum, which is, by the way, the second stage of the awakened will. When the will awakens for the sake of the other, stage 2 in the awakening of the will, that's tihara tata, that's ak. You following me? So even tihara tata, ak, I'll say it one more time, is a klal of all the worlds where the pratim have not yet come out. And so before that, it's not even a klal for the worlds. This original awakening of the ratzon.
And there is blackness.
And it's what we're saying is that the fact that there's a ratzon is already something called blackness.
Why now hu in ratzono echad?
What's that? Okay, even if you want to say hu ratzono echad, although I've never heard that lesson before, but it's nice. It's still ratzono. In other words, there's still 2 things. If you want to find, we're saying that they're echad. We're saying that it's a drop of water in the ocean and it's ocean light, but then don't call it a drop. If it's a drop, even in the ocean, it's still some shaykhs to the world. That's what he's trying to. That's this whole conversation is like, which was bothering you yesterday.
Yes.
So, did you want to say something?
So this first ratzon is something called blackness, and it's before the light, and that's ratzon hamuklat.
The first ratzon.
You say ratzon hamuklat.
Ratzon. Okay, we're going to say it's like blackness, but it's the first one. Yeah, is yes, you're right. Ratzon hamuklat is before the light shines, and it's in the essence itself. It's the essence of the light, at very least. Then the light shines, and that's called an arousal or awakening of the will. And that is in the or ein sof, but it's an awakening will to yourself. Awakening of the will to yourself. You realize that you want a house. That's like a chiddush to you in a certain sense. And then there's the awakening of the will, which is actually relevant to doing something about it. That this will that you have is actually relevant to then, if this is ak, knowing that there's going to be details and it's going to lead to action. Someday I'm going to actually one day have a house. That's already the second level of the awakening of the will.
And that is ak?
That's ak.
That is ak. But before that, that's...
Or in sof before the tzimtzum.
Or the same sof. Where's that kav?
Kav is basically ak. Kav is after the tzimtzum. I mean, kav is not...
The beginning of kav.
Oh, the beginning of the kav. I see what you're
The
saying.
beginning of the shah, you say, the beginning of the ratzon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so going on, we said earlier, the ratzon zeh hu b'chinas hisorus shenisor kaviyach b'ratzon. This will, inside the Orient Sof, is an awakening of will. Im kei v'hechrech lomer sheyesh lo eizeh shayches. If that's the case, if it's awoken, then we must say that it has some relevancy to olamos, to worlds. But what? It's just that this is in the external part of that light. So in the Orient Sof, which is bothering us, how can you say that there's like anything in the Orient Sof? And yet we're saying, okay, there is, because there's something called this Aliyas HaRatzon. So we have to divide the Orient Sof into Penimius and Chitzonius. At some level in the Orient Sof, there's not any shaykhs to the worlds. And at some level within that, the external aspect there is. But Kanod, as it's known to the Orient Sof, that in the Orient Sof before the Tzimtzum, there's also two levels. Penimius v'chitzonius, inner and outer. Which means, besides the essence of the light, which is neither the Penimius or the Chitzonius, the essence of the light is something which precedes both of them. The essence of the light is light before it shines. So besides that, that's the light in its state of concealment. There's no revelation there. Besides that, in the realm called the expansion of the light, there's also two levels. One is the light to itself. No, we're talking about right now the Penimius. Right? The first one is the Penimius. It's light to itself, and it's that part of the Orient Sof Taka is not shaykh to the worlds. In other words, there's nothing to do with worlds there. There's no interest in worlds. There's no will for worlds. It's just light that is. It's completely. So what is light? It's not. This is I guess what the Maimer has been talking about for weeks. It's not a light that shines to the other. It's a light, like we said, of the forehead type of light, right? Like a wise person who gets an idea and his light just starts to illuminate. It's not that he's trying to make something else illuminated. It's not he's shining his light. It's just that the essence of the thing shines. So this is a light which is not shaykh to the other in any way. That's the penimius of the Orient Sof. But the second level of the Orient Sof itself, that's the external part of the light, which is already relevant to the worlds. That's what we're saying. In the Orient Sof, before the Tzimtzum, right? You already see in that language, there's already two parts. First, you're hanging out in the Orient Sof before the Tzimtzum, and in that light, it went up in his will. So that light has a stage before it went up in his will, and it has a stage after it went up in his will.
The Penimius.
The Penimius is before, and the Chitzonius is his will.
But you said there's two levels in the Penimius.
No.
You said that?
No. In the Orient Sof, there's Penimius and Chitzonius. What we said was that there's something beyond both of them, which is the essence of the light, which is the concealed light before it even shines. But once it shines, as the Orient Sof, then you have inner and outer. The inner is not shaykh to the worlds, the outer is shaykh to the worlds. And he says, look what it says in L'Kutei Torah, in the Divrei Maschil Lahavi Mashkasu V'Otzros Chai, that Yesh Lomar, Shezeu Kamo B'chinas Machshava V'Dibur. Right? If you want to have a simpler analogy, we can back to earth a little bit. There's like thought and speech. The Machshava B'chinas Gilei Etzema Atzmi L'Gabi Atzmo. What is thought? It's revealing what was essentially hidden inside of yourself, but you're revealing it only to yourself. Right? So in other words, you yourself have these inner powers called the 10 spheros, and whatever is going on at that level of your pure soul, like your inner true emotion, or your inner true intellectual processes, they don't necessarily relate themselves to you in letters that you're self-aware. You could be having emotions that you're not aware of, right? So when you become aware of your emotions, what's going on there is that you suddenly have thoughts which reflect back to you what you're feeling, and that's a revelation. It's a giloy of an etz of some kind of the essential place, but it's a giloy to who? No one else sees your thoughts. It's a revelation to yourself. But dibur hu agiloy lazubas. Whereas when you go to speak them out, you don't need to speak them for yourself. The speech is clearly and only for the other one, to reveal it outside of you, to reveal it to the other. But in this case, we're not talking about actually speaking it out to any other, because they haven't even made the tzimtzum yet, which means there's not even a space to talk to. It's just a theoretical idea of thought and speech. Because here, even speech, it's only to himself. It's like he's talking to himself. But at least it's something which is shaykh to the other. So he says, the bechinas penimius, hu bechinas ha'orin sov kamoshu kodem ala soratza. Right? We already said. The penimius is the orin sov before it aroused to his will. In other words, before he aroused the will for the worlds.
Penimius is in the one that already came up to machshava?
No. Yeah, to machshava, yeah.
Or is this the mochlat?
No. He's talking about machshava. In other words, penimius, kodem ala soratza. Right, but still, he's trying to say that there's something that's just shy, with the machshava and dibur. He's just trying to say there's something shy to yourself and something shy to the other. Okay. So you already said the penimius of the light is only shy to Hashem. It's not shy to the other. And then comes, so that's called the light before ala baratzon. It went up in his will, because the going up in your will, it's a will for worlds.
Oh yeah.
The will is the will for worlds. What is his will? Right? Latziov livro. It's his will to emanate and to create. And
the penimius is like, okay, he already got the will, it's just not really able to...
No, I mean, I hear what you're saying.
Realize the will that he wants a house.
No.
So what's a lesser ratzon? Lesser ratzon is really like the pile. Like
No. Allah ratzon is a will that you want a house. But what I'm trying to say is that's the chitzonius of the Orient Sof, not the penimius of the Orient Sof. That's already considered like dibur, not machshava.
It's like, that's it.
It's just saying that even that's after the innermost deep desire. Then you have but that's not even a lesser ratzon. You're saying even when you realize that you want a house, it's not a lesser ratzon.
Even though when you realize you want a house,
a human has it deep inside of them. So that's kayyum lesser ratzon.
Yes. No.
The penis is also kayyum lesser ratzon. You're saying.
Wait. The very fact that you have a will that you want a house is already something shaykh to the worlds, right? It's already something shaykh to the worlds. There's a part of you, which is you, that doesn't want a house. It's not really thinking about the fact that I have desires. It's just you, right? You are, and not that you want. There's two different things, right? One is like sort of like a need that you have that needs to be filled. One is just your essential being. Your essential being also shines. It shines in an undelineated, unspecific way. It's just like my essence has a revelation of no particular concern for anything. You see what I'm saying? So that's the penimius of the Orient Sof, just the you that shines. It's not for anything or some desire. That's the penimius of the Orient. That's what we're saying here is like thought. It just shines to yourself.
That's kind of what Ratzon.
That's before the
that's after Ratzon and Muchlat.
Yeah. But again, Ratzon and Muchlat is, I would say, even if you want to go to the Ratzon and Muchlat, even there's things inside of Hashem's essence besides this Ratzon HaMuchlat. There's the essence. It's just the essence also contains, theoretically, already the source for the other. You see what I'm saying? So at every stage there's him and his name.
Right, yeah. You have the ocean and you have the rest of it.
Right.
Is there any place in the system that there is no even Shayach Ratzon? Beyond the Ratzon, the place that we cannot talk about, the place that, like the one, or...
There is a place like that,
but Etzem,
in the Etzem, but, right, and this is a big but, is that the Etzem also has the Etzem Ha'or, which means that inside the Etzem, the essence, there already is light in there, but the light at that level is completely one with the essence. It's not a separate thing. So, in other words, you have this idea of beyond the worlds and the worlds. At every stage, those two things exist. But the point is, you can never shake one or the other. Okay? So this level of what we're calling machshava is the penimius of the Or Ein Sof. This is before it went up in his will. And then you have the bechinis chitzonius, who bechinis aliyas haratzon. Now that's when it already does go up in his will. So within this format, in this domain of the infinite light, something happens. It's called the external light. It went up in his will.
And that's Ak.
No, that's not Ak. That's the source of Ak, you could say, in the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. Right? It's inside the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, this whole conversation. It's just that there's the inner and the outer.
And then after the Tzimtzum, only the external came out?
Then the external is much more, then it sort of switches. Then the external is what's obvious and the internal is hidden. Inside, before the Tzimtzum, the Penimius is sort of like the ocean is there and the drop is hard to see.
Okay.
After the Tzimtzum, the drop is there and the ocean is hard to see. But it's all still there. Umakum acher mavur. Elsewhere we explain shezeu sheyesh beis bechinas b'shmo hagadol. There's two levels in what's called the great name. It's basically the same thing he's saying, just in a different language. The ad shenivra olam hu ushmol bilvad. That before Hashem created, there was him and his name alone. Yesh b'shmo beis madregas, and in him and his name itself has two levels. One mitzad atzmo.
Which name is it?
His name, Yud Kei Vav Kei.
Okay.
Right? Mitzad atzmo hu Or Ein Sof mamish. So the name as it is on its own, in other words, it's literally Or Ein Sof. And the second, Masha nichlal bo gam ken koch hasfiros. And the second is that inside of this name, it has the potential of the power of making spheros. So in his name, it's kind of like what we just said a moment ago, right? Is that you have yourself, and you also have a theoretical abilities inside of yourself. They're two different things. So in Hashem's great name, it's also just the name of Himself, but a name is also a description at the same time. On one hand, a name is just a reference to the you. On the other hand, a name is a description of the you. And so the great name also has these two abilities. It has like the inner, which is just Hashem Himself. It's not shaykh to describing anything. It's just a reference point of the God. And then it has, if it's a name, then it's a name with four letters, and each letter represents this, and it already contains powers and potential. So you have the inner part of the name and the outer part of the name as well. Which when it's already coming as a name to describe spheros, that's already a power to enliven at a level of limitation. That Hashem is now as a limited power, that He can bring out individual powers. And then he brings yet another analogy to try to describe this. And this is what he says in something called Bina of Atzilus. You have a good look at Bina of Atzilus. It's called Havaya B'Nikud Elokim. Right? The name that goes with Bina is Yud Kei Vav Kei. But the vowelization, and you have this in Tanakh, that you vowelize Havaya with the word, as though it's vowelized with Elokim, with the vowels that go with the word Elokim. And when you pronounce it, you say when you come upon something, you actually say Elokim, right? When you see this word like that, when Havaya is pronounced Elokim. Mm-hmm. So he says this is in Bina. It's not Elokim, and it's not exactly Havaya either. It's Havaya with the vowels of Elokim. In the Zohar, Chelik Gimel explains, Parshas Achrei, Daf Samech Hey, Amid Aleph. It says Shemitzad Atzmo Hi Havaya B'Chinas Rachim. That on its own, it's Havaya itself. It's this level of Rachamim, like pure light. But because at the sort of end, at the chitzonius aspect of this Rachamim, dinim come out and it starts to contract. It has a chitzonius and a sof. So therefore it's vowelized with Elokim, which is the name of din. And the idea is that Havaya is the lights of Atzilus. V'shem Elokim hu akli, and the name of Elokim is the vessel. V'akelim hem gimel b'chinas l'ranan.
The name of the Nikud or the Nikud.
Now he just changed it a little bit. He says that the Havaya is all the lights of Atzilus, and Elokim is the vessels of Atzilus.
That makes sense.
Okay? And he's saying now, a moment ago he said that
No, the vessel of
Bina itself is the name that goes with Bina is Havaya, but
So-
it's vowel as
So
Elokim.
Bereshit bara Elokim, like Bereshit Abba bara Elokim Ima, like Zohar Bereshit.
Okay. The Kalim hem gimel b'chinas l'ranan. So the Kalim, which basically in vessels in general, there's three levels of vessels. There's the inner part of the vessel, the middle of the vessel, and the bottom of the vessel. In other words, like we have, you see this all over the place, right? You have essentially your brain, your body, and your activity, or you have mamash in actually a cup, right? You have the part of the cup that touches the liquid, you have the part that touches your hand, and you have the body of the cup itself, like inside. Every of vessels, whenever you have them, it's rosh toch sof. And
Three-dimensional thing.
what's that?
It's like 3 dimension.
Yeah, and the idea is that it's nefesh, ruach, and neshama, right? Nefesh, ruach, and neshama are the three lower soul powers. Chai and yechida are powers without vessels, right? That's why they're called makif, because they're makif because there's no vessel that holds them. So when you get into the mind, the heart, and the liver, which is like the three, those are already vessels which contain the light. So in general, when it comes to vessels, Shem Elokim, it comes in three: inner, middle, and outer. Shematchilim bina, but it starts off from bina. Why do you see bina? Because this whole idea of how does bina relate to nefesh, ruach, and neshama? Anybody?
How is it related to Nefesh?
Yeah, what's the relationship with bina to nefesh, ruach, and neshama?
It's the source of it.
Because Bina.
Why is the source of it?
They emanate from Bina.
Bina will give birth to them.
Where's nefesh? What sphere is nefesh connected with?
Malchut.
And ruach,
Zaz,
Heart.
Elokim.
za, the 6 spheres of za, and neshama, bina. Right. So they it's the first of the keli, if you will.
What's the
Right? Atzilus is chokhmah, right?
Could I just answer that?
But not Atzilus, but I think you mean chaya. Chaya is chokhmah, and yechid is beyond the world. Yeah.
You said that we've gone from, we've got Hashem and His name is potential like in Sefirot, and then you've gone straight to Bina.
Right. I didn't do it. The Rebbe did it.
No, what happened to Chokmah? What happened to Ket?
No, because he's trying to explain that Bina is Chokhmah and Keter, for example, would be like aspects that are really just to Hashem Himself. We're trying to describe this like subtle situation where in the light there's already an aspect of the light which is to itself and an aspect of the light which is to the other, and they're joined together. And he's trying to say Bina is that because Bina is this mixture. On one hand, it's the name of Bina is Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the light, but the vowelization of Bina is Elokim. So Bina already is like this lead-in of where you have a external lead to the vessels.
It seems to me that he's describing the flowing down from Hashem to this world.
Yeah.
So why is he jumped? I mean, I understand that Bina is the link, but why is he jumped?
He's using Bina as an analogy. He's not really trying to jump. He's saying, first he said, let me just talk straight. We're in the Orient, so before that seems when you have Chitzonis Panimius, before the Aliyas Ratzon or after the Aliyas Ratzon. He says, but that's complicated, so let me explain it in another way. It's the Shem Hagadol. That's just like a name. The name could be referring to the essence, the name could already be describing the essence and like the source of description in Spheros. He says, let me give you another mashal. That's all. He's not like going from stage to stage. He's just giving you different analogies of the same thing. He says, we find this same type of relationship in Bina. Whereas you don't find it in Chochmah and Kesser. It's another mashal for the same idea. He's not really... He's only bringing Bina here to continue his description of the Orient Soap before the Tzimtzum. He's just saying you find another analogy of that in the sphere of Bina, where it's half light, half vessel.
Right.
It has a Chitzonius and a Panemius. Thank you for clarifying that for us. Okay, so the Kelim are 3, and they begin with Bina, as we just described. Ve'im kein al yidei Bina hu ischabrus ha'or imakli. What do we see then? That Bina is really the joining of light and vessel. Because Bina has this ability to know what light is about, and yet it's really the beginning of vessels, it is your source for where light and vessels become one. L'chein hu havaya b'nikud elokim, and that's why its name it's the name of Hashem which goes along with that is literally a depiction of that. It's Havaya, light, with the vowels of Elokim. That whole concept is mamash an instruction on the joining of light and vessel. It's half light, half vessel. It's a little bit of both. Darech the same thing is regarding his great name. Sheyesh bo gam kein beis dugmas Havaya b'nikud Elokim. Right? Hainu mitzad atzmo hu b'chinas or in sof mamish v'nikra makil b'chinas soviklum. So he says the same is true with Hashem's great name. Sheyesh bo gam kein beis b'chinas dugmas Havaya, which is the same exact example of Havaya in the vowelization of Elokim. Right? The great name has also two sort of hats that it wears, just like Havaya when it's vowelized as Elokim. Yeah.
I'd love to see that. Sorry, I just wanted to picture what that looks like.
Havaya Elokim.
Yeah,
I'm saying we see it in Tanakh all the time. Oftentimes you see the word Havaya Elokim is a segel, right?
In your Siddur.
What is it? Yeah.
In your Siddur.
A tziri. Okay, all the.
It's
There's the Havaya, which is the inner
in
name
the Siddur.
of the great name, and then there's the Havaya, which is pronounced Elokim, which is the external.
Yes, it's written Havaya, and it's not only the external. The fact that it's written Havaya and it's pronounced Elokim, it's a mixture. It's half light, half vessel. It represents Bina, because Bina is also half light, half vessel.
Is that the beginning of his covers of Paris for Kalim?
Mm-hmm.
So you said there's two levels to the great name, like the light.
Yeah, so we're saying, not like the light, like the Indian of Havaya with vowelization of Elokim, where it's two levels in one. The great name also has two levels in one. You can look at it, as I said, as just a reference to the Eibishter, which is just a hymn, and then you could look at it as any name. It's a description, right? So it's half just godliness and half powers that he has.
You said that vessels come in three. Why is it that the case that vessels always come in three, not two, for example? It's a connection between light and physical. Why is it dafka in three?
Why is it dafka in three? I don't know. I guess it's just it's a very philosophical question. I mean, in other words, Hashem made it that way. But in other words, it's a process. In other words, first it's to yourself, then there's sort of an intermediary, and then it's to the other. Just like a cup, it's just like, that's what I'm saying, it's a weird question because I couldn't imagine a cup any other way. I'd have to have part of the cup holds the water, I have to have the cup itself, and I have to have the part that I can hold in my hand. One is totally relevant to the light, one is totally relevant to the giving, and one is this sort of thing in the middle, which is the sort of holding those two things together. So here we have it again. So you have the same thing with the name Hagad, the Shem Hagadol, that it has also two levels, which is just like Havaya with the vowelization of Elokim. Hainu, which means to say like this: Mitzad Atzmo Hu B'chinas Or Ein Sof Mamash. That means to itself, it's pure Or Ein Sof. It doesn't know from anything but infinite light. V'nikra Makil B'chinas Soviv Kolomim. And this is called. Let's get this clear. This is a nice little point. This is called the source of Sovev Kol Omim. Right? When it's shining only to itself, it's called the source of Sovev Kol Omim. Why is it the source? Why isn't it just Sovev Kol Omim? What is Sovev Kol Omim? The light that surrounds the worlds. The light which the worlds cannot touch. The problem with that is that Sovev Kol Omim, it has like a last name. It's called the light which surrounds the worlds. Which means it has some shaykhs to the worlds. What's it shaykhs to the worlds? That the world cannot handle it. The world can't grasp it. It's a funny shaykhs to the worlds. Because it means it has no shaykhs to the worlds. But the fact is that its shaykhs to the worlds is that worlds, it's beyond the worlds. But it's already in the realm of worlds. So you only talk about Sovev Kol Omim when you're dealing with lights that are, we're dealing with after the Tzimtzum, or something that's essentially beyond what the worlds can handle. So you have worlds in your conversation already.
It's like the water around the drop that's gone out of the ocean.
Yeah, but I'm saying that we're calling this, that's true, but we're saying that this Or Ein Sof, which is entirely to itself, this is not Sovev Kol Omim, because there's literally no worlds in this conversation. But it's the source of Soviv Kolomim, which means after we make worlds, there's going to be always in every world, no matter where you are, this feeling that there's something beyond the worlds, whether you're in Atziya or Yetzira or Bria or Atzilus or Ak, there's always some aspect of light which the worlds can't contain. It's like a runoff from the original part of the light, which literally is beyond the worlds. You understand what I'm saying there? All right, let me just finish the line and we'll say it again. Amnam gam ken kalul bo shorosh b'chinas mamali kolomim hameir b'chinas gevul. So in this great name, you have the one part of it which is to itself, which is the source of Sovev. However, it's contained inside of it the source of mamale, which does shine to a limited place. And so what we're saying is like this: inside of the Or Ein Sof, you have two parts. Yes. You have the part that's to itself, and you have the part that's the will for the worlds. So that, because you already have two parts there, those two parts are going to eventually be, when you make a tzimtzum, and you start making worlds, every world has sovev light and mamale light. And it's relative. In other words, the light which is mamale for Yetzira is sovev for us. You understand that? The light that the creatures of Yetzira can internalize, we can't internalize. So Sovev Mamali is somewhat relative when you get inside of the worlds. But the very fact that every single world has its own Sovev and its own Mamali, which means that each play, right? It means there's a source for Sovev and Mamali. And that's that in the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, there's already an aspect of light which shines to itself and the arousal of his will. So therefore these two models travel all the way through every single place, right into us. Because there's things that are beyond our head and there's things that we totally understand. Let's say Eter is beyond our head of things. And there's certain things that we understand. Right? So it's very important when you're dealing with something which is beyond your kelim, it's also a big deal. You're accessing the Sovev light, which is Bichlal beyond the world, and so that's its source.
Sovev and Mamale. Sovev is around it and Mamale is inside?
In it, yeah.
What's Makiv?
Makiv is Sovev.
What's Sovev?
So what's the source of mamale light in every world? There's mamale light. What's its ultimate source? The root of spheros inside of the infinite light. So we said again, part of Hashem has an aspect of light where there's no powers, there's no spheros, and within that light it contains the power to have spheros and powers.
The Shema Gadol are inside Lefnei Tzimtzum?
Yeah, but it has two parts. Behind the Bechinas Aliyas HaRatzon. So what is this source of powers, of spheros that are going to shine? That's the Aliyas HaRatzon. That's the arousal, the coming up of his will inside of this Or Ein Sof. So what do we see? That even in the Or Ein Sof, that's before the Tzimtzum, you do have a type of light, a breed of light, whose job it is to shine in a finite way. That's called the source of spheros inside of light. Light is not essentially spheros, right? There's light which is beyond spheros, and then there's spheros inside of that light. And those spheros are automatically, what is a sphera? It's a limited thing, which right, and it's the root of the ability to shine into something, and there it is contained inside of the infinite light. I.e., it's the power to shine in a limited way. So he's describing how really there is darkness inside of light, even at the highest levels.
Because that's the part that's relevant to a Kli?
In some removed way. Again, we'll go back to the beginning of this class. We said it in Ratzon HaMuchlat, or the Ratzon, he sort of Ratzon to himself. But yes, at every stage there's some thin, connection point where it's relative eventually to a Kli.
Or even if it's not directly, but somehow...
Not only is it not directly, light which is before the Tzimtzum is B'havdalah, by definition all of it, even the Chitzonius, in a certain sense, has nothing to do with the world. But, in some slight way, the Chitzonius aspect does have something to do with the worlds, because it's the source of what will eventually be Mamale light.
It must be similar to, if you want to move your hand, the original thought of wanting to move your hand is the source of that mechanical...
Yeah, 100%. And there's deep, deep thoughts beyond just even before you get to I want to move my hand. There's I'm thirsty, right? So I don't even think about my hand yet. It's like a will which is way beyond wanting to move my hand, right? but I'm going to have to grab the cup. So that is a source of a source of a source. Okay, so this is a parenthesis which is a little bit of a doozy, I must say. But it says, it's explained by us elsewhere, that according to what it says in the Pardes, She'atzach tzachos hen shorshe hakelim. Right, so what is tzach tzachos? The exact definition, actually, I'm not even sure, but it's like something shiny, sparkly, right? And the idea is that we talked about it before. We said we actually mentioned this word quite recently. We said that afal keser elyon, afal pishu or tzach u'matzuch tzach, right? Even though the keser elyon is this like tzach tzachos, it has this sparkly light in it, whatever it means. It's still considered ukam hu lifnei ilah ha'ilos. It's still black before the. So there's this idea that light in its ultimate level is like tzach. What's a good definition for tzach?
Pure.
Pure.
The pureness of
Not
pureness.
tzach, but still.
Effulgence.
Effulgence?
I don't know, man.
That sounds like a good cup of coffee.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
All right. Anyway,
Something.
so
Also clean, very pure and clean.
very pure and clean. Okay.
The pureness of purity.
Pureness of purity. Now we're getting there. Anyway, so he says in the Pardes, he says like this, that the tzach tzachos are the shorshe hakelim. This level is called the root of the vessels. Lo shorshe ha'oros, not the root of the lights. Now let me just, before we get into this, let's remind ourselves that there's, besides the fact that you have infinite light, which is beyond the world, and then finite light, which is called light and darkness, which is a light which is for the sake of the world. So you have this other thing, basically, which has nothing to do with that, which is the source of the vessels. Hashem's power of being infinite is light, whether it's infinite light or finite light, and his power of being finite is tzimtzum, which is the absence of light, which is mamish vessels. It comes from a completely different place. So this is an important thing to remember. Limited light is not the source of limitation. The tzimtzum and Hashem's ratzon of being begvul is the source of kelim.
Question. The first thing that I read it is like no. The kli of gvura is made of the light of gvura, but mit'abeh, like very aveh.
Right.
But then when you said it, it's no. The kli of gvura was made when he reduced the light, and from the first, like before the tzimtzum, and what is left there. So it's a bit different.
It's different, right? This is a big chiddush. In other words, this is a very big debate, by the way, where the source, like if in the light itself there's already gavul, or if it borrows that gavul entirely from the kelim, and the light is just pure, simple light. You understand what I'm saying?
There's only light. What was before? There was never. It was all light. There's not like there was a source for vessels, which is something else than light.
Incorrect. But I hear what you're saying, and that's what I'm saying. I don't mean to be rude, but that's the point.
Awesome.
It is awesome. Like when you come to realize that there's a source of vessels, but there's nothing to do with the light.
But
and where do you
bring it all back?
All back. Mamash to the beginning, right?
Go to Hashem.
Right. What do you have? You have two things, so to speak. Kiviyachol. You have really one thing, but it's Hashem's ability. Hashem has ability to do two things, right? There's no light and there's no vessels when you go right back. There's just essence, and essence does not have any actual expression, right? Yeah. But it has two abilities and two opposite abilities, and that's very important for us because our God, He can do the impossible, which means God is essentially a joining of two opposite things that cannot be. What are they? That He's infinite and finite at the same time.
Beautiful.
Now, infinite and finite at the same time, when they actually come into expression, that's one thing. When they come out, you have infinite and you have finite. There are two things that are oppositional. That's not God. God is both those things as they are one and not contradicting each other. So what happens is He wants to show us His powers. So the first power that He shows us actually is His infinite power, and that's what He said. If you go back to the beginning, all you see is light, because that's the first power that He showed us. So you don't see any vessels or any concept.
Show us limitation.
He can. You know how He does it?
He just shows light, and then
He removes the light.
Right.
By removing the light, He showed us His power of limitation.
First thing, you must have light.
Not necessarily. I mean, in
Okay,
theory,
fine.
Hashem
Obviously,
could
God
have
can
started
do
the process with darkness and then shined the light. It didn't suit his fancy, I suppose. But the idea is that he has both these two things. And the idea is when he removes the light, most of us think about this as a removal of something. But reality is that this is a presentation of something. It's a presentation of his power of being finite. It's not that he wants to show light and then take the light away. He shows one power, which is the infinite power, then he shows the other power. What's the definition of showing a finite power? Is that infinity disappears. It's not the way you think about it, that the action here is a removal. The action here is a presentation of finite, and therefore the result is that infinity disappears.
It's a great power.
It's a greater power even. Because they say the muscle, what is it stronger? The energy required to run a train at 100 miles an hour, or the energy to stop it in its tracks in one instant, right? Gevura is called Gevura for a reason. It's strong. Stronger than Chesed.
So the source of the vessels is a higher place than the source of the light.
The source of the vessel is higher than the source of the light.
Therefore, although they appear lowly,
Yes.
here, they actually have a higher potential kedusha.
Exactly.
And so when we come and convert them,
There you go.
we're converting ourselves to a higher level.
There you go. It's pretty much the whole Chassidus in a nutshell right there. Right? So now, we're going to have to end here, but just to clarify where we're going to start, I guess, tomorrow. What we're talking about right now is the conversation that we just entered into. That the source of the lights, is there limitation in them? Or do they just borrow limitation from the source of the vessels, where there's for sure limitation in there, because that's their representation of the source of Hashem's power to be finite. So is the light just?
Which does it come from the external part?
What's that?
Does it come from the external part of the light?
If you want to say that there's limitation in light itself, then for sure you want to say that it comes from the external part of the light. That's where the light breaks into powers and definitions. But if you want to say that light itself is just simple oneness, there is no division in it.
I want to say, what's the?
What do we ultimately say?
Yeah.
There is actually some limitation in light itself. In other words, there is such a thing as spheros of light that has nothing to do with vessels.
Okay.
It's just that those spheros of light without vessels can never actually be finite until they interact with the vessels. It's just a theoretical. It's a potential within light to be finite, but it actualizes that potential by interacting with real gavul, which is the vessels.
Is it like the letters of the Luchos? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but yeah, sounds good.
They're there, but they're not there.
Oh, the potential of gavul
It is
in the light?
but it's the lack of ice.
Again, the best metaphor is the colors and the light. Like a beam of light has all the colors inside it, but until it breaks, you can see them.
Why is it the source of Kalim?
Understand?
That's
The white light has all the colors inside it. When it's going into a cloud, it's breaking rainbow. Where was these colors before? In the potential inside them before it breaks to it. Yeah.
The idea of limitation. I don't know what Chassidus is, but
Yeah. Tzfat is death?
Yeah. The part where you get nourished.
Well, that's the translation.